Welcome into the doors of Psychic Experience and Star People. Thank you for tuning in. Ask and you will be given what you ask for. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives. Anyone who seeks finds. If only you will knock, the door will open, and the truth within your higher self will be revealed to you. Come with us now and go with us where angels come, and so can you.
Hello, welcome to Psychic Experience. I'm the host, Reverend Doris Horvath. Thank you for tuning in. The show is being presented by the First Spiritualist Church in San Diego in the City Heights area, where angels come, and so can you. Any Sunday, we have resident angels, myself, the pastor, Reverend Doris. I also have the president, Reverend Rosie Overlees, who is a master Reiki teacher, and we have other ministers as well, Reverend Margaret Adler, and some new licentiate ministers, Noel Douglas Despain, licensed minister, Rosary Etzel, licensed minister, and Rochelle Stewart, licensed minister. Now, our church is progressing at a high pace right now. We're going into a new birth for our church. A lot of wonderful things are happening. And we have guests on this television show. We talk about metaphysical and spiritual topics, and we have guests on once a month for our talk show, which is what this is. And today I have two guests. I have Dr. Charles Knoll. Would you like to say hello, Charles?
Hello.
And we also have his friend, and I can't say her last name right, but I will try. It's Cocholeo. Corey Cocholeo.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about some very interesting things. And before I go into all that, I would like to read their bios so that you know where they are coming from. Dr. Charles Knoll is a medical doctor who specializes in hypnotherapy. He grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where he was exposed to the Edgar Cayce readings and concepts of how life is far more than merely a three-dimensional physical experience. After receiving his BA in psychology at Yale University, he attended the Medical College of Virginia and completed his MD. He then did his residency in physical medicine and rehabilitation at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, where he served as chief resident. He worked as a teaching physician at Johns Hopkins for 3 years before coming to San Diego to study hypnotherapy and regression therapy at the Institute of Thought. With the help of others, Dr. Knoll and Michelin Verdun founded the Altered States Research Group. They are now collaborating with Institute of Thought and World Healer Institute on a training program for a new specialist, the medical transpersonal practitioner. Corey Cocholeo is an altered states therapist and certified hypnotherapist. She grew up in Rotherham, England, where she attended the Rotherham College of Arts and Technology. She came to the United States in 1997, eventually moving to San Diego with her family. She found herself with a series of health issues that took her life in an unexpected direction. The journey included extensive studies at the Institute of Thought, where she learned the 15-step process, hypnotherapy and regression therapy. She now teaches the 15-step and hypnotherapy internationally, sees clients in her outpatient practice, and leads the Institute of Thought as its executive director. Corey has partnered with Dr. Joseph Costa on groundbreaking medical work with doctors on the spiritual plane. She's also the co-founder of the Millennium Woman Pyramid Program. She serves on the board of the World Healer Institute an international group of visionary planetary healers with a mission to cleanse mass destruction thinking from our world. In her spare time, Corey energetically pursues her doctorate and maintains a loving relationship with her husband and 2 young daughters. Now, we're going to talk a little bit here. In order to do that, we have to ask questions and answer questions. So is it okay with the 2 of you if I go ahead now and ask the questions? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, please do.
Now, first of all, I'm going to ask you to answer. I'm going to ask Charles to answer first, and then Corey. How did you come to your positions working with hypnotherapy and changing consciousness?
When I was working mostly in hospital-based rehabilitation, one of the things I found was most of my patients were people with new disabilities, and they were going through some major transition in life. So it might be a new stroke or an amputation or something where they had to redefine themselves to some degree. These were, more often than not, were situations that were unexpected or forced on the individual, but I became fascinated with how much this was a catalyst for personal change. Oftentimes it did things not just to the individual, but to the whole family. And so part of what I saw with hypnosis and hypnotherapy was a way to help people go within to help catalyze change, whether or not they had life forcing a situation on them or giving them an unexpected illness or something like that. So the hypnosis and hypnotherapy became a tool to help change happen. So a lot of people will come to me even without some other circumstance and say, I feel like change is needed, and that's what we use this for.
Okay, Corey.
I think with my experience, I had a lot of different events that happened that looking back were quite bizarre and didn't make sense. And then in 2003, I found myself moving to San Diego, not having any spiritual background or any religious background. And I had 2 very small girls. My husband traveled a lot, so I spent a lot of time at home on my own. And I was quite unhappy, and I found through different people the Institute of Thought. And that's when I met Dr. Costa, and things changed from there.
Okay. And what are you trying to accomplish in doing all this, Charles?
The big end result we're working on is cleansing mass consciousness. We want people to understand that we exist in a state of oneness, and we want people to change and ultimately end self-destructive behavior. So there are a lot of different ways that we can go about that. My own particular avenue is working through the medical field and helping use medical situations as a catalyst for change, so that people let go of their karmic issues and they let go of their pain. They learn to love themselves, to forgive themselves, to love other people. And this is one path to help people on that, I would say, move towards oneness, except that the oneness is already a fact. It's more of a question of helping people realize that oneness.
Okay, Corey?
Well, at the Institute, we talk a lot about the shift in 2012 and the evolving into the 4th dimension. And I think one of the main goals that we try and achieve is, with the different teachings that we have at the Institute, we try and give people the tools so that they can make it through the transition successfully and healthily, and make the changes that are happening on the planet, and being aware of what it is that's happening to themselves and the planet as we evolve into the 4th dimension.
Okay. And Dr. Charles, what do you see is in the future of the Earth now?
Well, I think ultimately, as we make that transition to the 4th dimension that Corey's referring to, I think we'll see that oneness is a much more natural way of being. And it will, as people let go of the burdens that they're carrying and they balance the karma that they're bringing with them from previous lives, that it will be much easier to exist in that state of oneness. So I think that it'll be a much more harmonious time. But I think also that simple thought will have a much more powerful effect, and so that's part of the reason that people need to cleanse their karma and make progress with that at this point.
Well, would you like to add something to that, Corey?
I repeat the question. I was listening to Charlie and
Well, let's
let's
let that one go. Okay.
We're talking about where we see the future of things.
Okay. I think if we can see the future as each individual understanding or having an aspect of spirituality within them and having a balance of the material world and the non-material world, then I think we'll have achieved what we're trying to achieve together.
Okay. What would you like to see people doing for themselves, Dr. Charles?
That balance that Corey is referring to is key. The idea of having people have their own spirituality, their own connection to spirituality is key. I think one of the things I would love to see people do for themselves is to keep evolving, keep knowing themselves better. And part of the reason that I think it's so important to take advantage of changes in health is because every time your body gives you a physical change, that's a way for your mind to give you a metaphor to bring something from the unconscious to the consciousness. Now, we often like to know our answers from other people and say, okay, tell me what I'm supposed to do now. And one of the things I love is when I see a person go to taking care of their own spirituality, not so much to not be receptive to other people, but to go within themselves and make that connection, which is such an individualized thing. And it's spirituality, as you know, is so individual, and this is a way, we're working on ways to help people connect to that spirituality within themselves.
Okay. And Corey, what do you think people should be doing for themselves?
I think when we're born with a large amount of intuition. As children, we're very pure, and we have an intense knowing of everything around us rather than just thinking we have the five senses. If we can work so that everybody gets back in touch with their intuition, I think we'd have an easier time in day-to-day life.
I think a lot of people forgot they have intuition.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to see happening on the planet, Dr. Knoll?
I would like to see an end to killing. I would like to see an end to the violence that we give to each other, but I think the steps that we need to take are a lot of different avenues, as I was saying. And so I think that I would like to see people realize their oneness and do that by connecting with their own spirituality. And I think the effect that this has on the planet will be far-reaching. And I think it'll be surprising as far as how much impact it has on our economy, on how we treat the environment, how we exist together.
And Corey, what would you like to see happening on this planet?
Harmony.
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 I agree. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes, definitely.
What is the overall goal of your work right now, Dr. Knoll?
So the biggest thing we're working on right now is a way to help people with physical issues use that as a catalyst for personal growth and change. So we've set up the Medical Transpersonal Practitioner Program, and this specialist, the MTP, we call it for short, would be somebody who has training as a hypnotherapist and a regression therapist, somebody who's trained to help every patient connect to their own spirituality within, but do it in such a way that they can use the medical situation as a catalyst for change. And so the MTP would be set up to work closely with the rest of the medical community. And our idea is to train people so that they'll be comfortable working in the hospital or in the doctor's office, and that the medical staff there will know how to work with them.
I see.
So there's a lot of meeting each other part way.
That would be wonderful. That could happen. What do you think about that, Corey?
I think we are actually celebrating, this is the 30 years of the Institute of Thought and the teaching, and the principles of the Institute of Thought and the classes that we teach there. If we can make it so that each individual that walks through the door gains tools to improve their life every day and be able to meditate and go to a place where they can ask within. and get wisdom from their own higher selves, then
Okay.
that's what we're working on.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Knoll, tell me more about the medical transpersonal
Which the MTP?
the Transpersonal Practitioner Project.
This is a joint project with the Altered States Research Group and the Institute of Thought and the World Healer Institute. And right now our projection is the training will probably last about 6 months. And people will probably come into this, some of them from a more conventional allopathic medical background. Some of them may come into it more from a hypnotherapy type of background or more familiarity with metaphysical issues. And what we want to try to teach them is how these two worlds become one, and have people work together so that there isn't the same distrust that I often see now. Right now, if I go into the hospital, the spiritual people and the psychics are too woo-woo and strange, and the psychics are saying, well, we don't trust the hospital people. So I want to try to get everybody to work together to help the patient.
Yeah. Well, you have to get around their families too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Try to get everybody to realize that this is an opportunity for personal growth.
Well, I remember in Corey's bio, she talked a lot about the 15-step process. So would you like to tell about
Yes.
that?
The 15-step process was given to Dr. Costa by the guides, by the Inner World Masters in the year 2000. It's a process that was waiting. He knew about the process from being a very small boy. He's actually 85 this last week. So he knew about something that was coming. He was told from being very young that something was coming to help people transition to the fourth dimension. And the process is very simple. It takes a weekend to learn, and it takes 7 minutes to reach your guides on the inner world, or your angels, whatever you would like to call them. And you can ask them any questions. You can gain physical health, physical healing, or you can ask them different questions about your life, your job, what do I need in the future. So it's just a connection to the inner world. It's like the doorway, basically, to the inner world. And it works every time you do it.
Okay. Now, earlier on, before we started tonight, I remember we were talking about doctors on the other side. Dr. Knoll, could you tell me more about doctors on the other side, and what do you mean by that? How do you work with them?
When we work with a patient's health on this side, part of what is helpful is to gain access to knowledge and wisdom and a much broader perspective than what we can see, generally speaking, what we can see from the physical body. And so doing our work in partnership with people who are not currently incarnate, but who have experience with the medical field. You might say, well, if they have access to all knowledge and all wisdom, why do they need experience with the medical field? And what we're looking for is somebody who has a vibration that connects well with where we are here on this side, so that, again, there's a meeting from the inner world, or the spiritual plane, if you will, to this side, so that we can say, how do we help this patient? Can you give us advice? What is there healing that can be done? What, in some ways, it's almost like having the ultimate MRI machine, or the great healing tool.
Okay. Are there any particular doctors that you, in spirit, you would like to say something about?
There's a gentleman named Thomas that helps us a lot with a lot of our work, and so we're frequently talking about Thomas around the office and asking him questions by going to the 15th step to say, this is what we're doing with this project, or this is how we're teaching the class. How do you recommend we work with this?
Thomas was actually, he died in 1946. He transitioned to the other side in 1946, and we have different information about him. He was a doctor during the war.
Oh, I see.
And he died. He actually passed in Berlin. Oh. So that's the Thomas that Charlie's referring to.
Oh, I see. Okay. How do doctors on the other side relate to the medical transpersonal practitioner then, Dr. Knoll?
A medical transpersonal practitioner can help a patient with a health experience, and part of what they can do is help that patient connect to a doctor on the other side. So if I'm helping Mrs. Jones, she's sick in the hospital, part of what I can do is help Mrs. Jones connect to a doctor on the other side herself so that she can gain insight from the experience, and the doctor on the other side can help with her situation. Now, part of what we do is I'm not just telling Mrs. Jones, hey, this is what you're going to experience. I'm helping her find this within herself so that it works in a way that meets her where she is. And so the doctors on the other side become very helpful for that, for helping us meet the patients where they're ready to work with this kind of thing.
I think the main difference that you get from the healing on the Doctors on the Inner World is that they work with the person's thinking, the belief system, you know, why they got that illness or why they got into that situation in the first place. So they work with that, not just the injury, they work on the person's belief.
I have a question, because you're talking about working with spirit doctors. What would you have to say about Dr. Casey?
Edgar Casey?
Edgar Casey.
Edgar Casey, we actually also talk to on the 15th step sometimes. And
right.
he did so much important work. But one of the main concepts that he helped us get across, or that he helped bring into the world, was that mind is the builder. And that our existence is for each of us, is this personally defined existence that our mind helps to set up so that it speaks to each of us. So that the metaphors I see in the world around me and from my own body and in my dreams are there for me. And this is so that I grow, I know myself, I learn about this oneness. And I think Edgar Casey was profoundly influential in helping us see that oneness, and to realize this other side was a very real daily part of our experience. The other side being the non-material spiritual plane.
Do you ever go into a trance to find answers?
Yes.
Particularly when I do the 15th step, it's basically that kind of a process. It's kind of like a trance state. So it's different from what Edgar Casey did, but it has a similar access to knowledge and wisdom and connection to whatever is needed by the individual.
Do you think this has helped you increase your psychic abilities, your intuition?
It's been my experience, yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
You too, Corey?
I don't think I had any psychic abilities before I found my way there.
Are either one of you deciding to write a book about this?
The urge is there. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to say yet, but I've been told that I don't seem to have any lack of things to say. So
I'm actually in the process of writing a children's book.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, that's fun.
And it's all about colors and sounds, and how if you close your eyes, you can heal yourself with a certain color or a certain sound.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's very much how the doctors work on the inner. And I think my two small girls, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they work that way. If you ask them to close their eyes, they'll say, yeah, it's blue, I need blue, you know. So they help heal themselves.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you have any favorite stories you would like to tell, Charles?
The thing I like best right now is seeing what physical brings up as a metaphor or as a way for people to heal. And so what's fascinating to me is that I keep thinking, oh, I should be able to tell exactly what this is going to be when somebody comes in the door. They say, my shoulder hurts. Oh, well, then that must be, because you're carrying a burden. Well, it often can be that kind of metaphor, but what's interesting is to see how things unfold. And when we use that to help go within the individual and help the individual find within themselves what's important about that shoulder, it ends up being something very personal for them. And that's what I love about it. So I don't have to tell them, well, this is what you have to believe. I help them find the insight within themselves.
Do you have any tendencies to believe that a lot of people's illnesses are self-created?
Very much.
I think ultimately,
Very much
they
so.
are things that we choose. And I know it's very difficult for a lot of my patients to hear, because some of my patients have extremely challenging health situations, devastating situations. But I think even if they didn't consciously choose them, I think that there's an agreement when they came into the world to say, this challenging experience will help me balance karma somehow. I don't mean they deserved it so much as they said, this is an opportunity I need.
Okay, well, it's a fascinating subject. One of my favorite subjects is hypnotherapy. I'm so happy you could come share with our audience what you're doing in your practice and giving our audience some tools for improving their lives. And I want to thank our crew members for helping. We certainly have had a very challenging, very interesting evening tonight. I want to thank both of you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for those of you in the audience, get a pencil, paper, and write down the phone number at the end of the show, because if you want to know more about these two wonderful people, you can call the show, the church telephone number. I'll be happy to get back with you and tell you what their phone numbers are. God bless, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye for now.